and welcome to this video where I'm going to take you from having little or no programming experience all the way to coding your very first portfolio website, like the one that you see on the screen here. This is the project that throughout the course of this video, you're going to go ahead and build for yourself. So my name is Derek Borkowski. I'm a pharmacist and a software developer, and I'm the founder of Cosmos Health, which is a company devoted to making elegantly designed software products for a healthcare audience. So you can check out our website if you're interested in learning more about that. We have 3 feature products right now. Pearls, which is a top drug summaries learning reference, RxGrad, a Naplex materials website, as well as pharmacist.dev, which is home to this video and other tech-related resources for pharmacists, pharmacy students, and clinicians. So let's jump right into it. Please open up the resources document that you found either on the page where you found this video or in the description. This is basically going to walk through and be home to all of the steps that we go through in this video today. So pull that up. And then before we get started, let me just lay out what we're all going to be doing today. So again, the purpose of this video is to take you from having, so you who are watching this video, you have little or no coding experience. And what you're going to do by the end of this video is program your own website from scratch. And we're also going to put it online so that you have a link so that you can share it on your resume or send the link to friends or however you'd like to distribute it. So at the end of this video, that's what you're going to have. However, I want to highlight that this is not an in-depth learning video. I'm going to show you just what you need to know, and you can follow along with what I'm doing in order to get to the purpose of, again, launching this website. So, reiterate, this is not an in-depth learning video, but I do in the resources document, and at the end, I'll point you in the direction of further learning resources where you can take a step back and learn more about the details of what we're doing today and build upon the skills that you do today. So it's totally fine if throughout the course of this video you feel lost. That'd be totally normal, especially if this is your first time programming, or if you need to pause the video several times so that you can watch things over or catch up to where I'm at. If you need to adjust the speed either faster or slower based on the pace I'm going, that'd be totally normal. And it's also fine if you just mindlessly copy whatever it is that I'm doing on the screen. Again, the purpose is for you to just code along, and at the end of this, you'll have a website that you coded that is online, that you've done. So what are we going to do? So let me just put it really simply. There's only 2 steps it takes to code your own website and to get it on the internet. So we're going to write an HTML file. So HTML is the root of every website. And so that's what we're going to do today. You're going to be making your HTML file, and then I'm going to show you a place on the internet where you can host it for free and get a link to share it. Okay. Before we jump into this, let me just take a step back, and especially if you have little technical background, just sort of kind of contextualize again more about what we're doing with creating this website. So just like I'm sure you're very familiar with Microsoft Word, it's an application on your computer, and what it does is it reads and it writes doc files and docx files, right? Word documents. So web browsers, which we're familiar with for surfing the internet, fundamentally what they do is they're also just applications on your computer, just like Word, but what they do is they read HTML files, and they can also read CSS and JavaScript files as well. And so they connect to the internet and fetch these files. So if you go to google.com, your web browser goes and fetches an HTML file from Google and then displays it within itself. So the root of every web page is an HTML file. So that's what we're going to be doing today, is we're going to be having you write an HTML file and put it on the internet. Now, instead of just like I mentioned Microsoft Word, you write doc files, you write Word files. There's also pieces of software applications that you can download on your computer to write HTML files and to write other coding files. But what tool we're going to use today is a website called REPL.it. So it's kind of like the Google Docs of code editing. So it's going to be an online website where we can just write the code right within it instead of having to download software to your computer where you can write the HTML files yourself. Okay, so with that, let me just revisit quickly what we're going to be building. So here is an outline of the portfolio website that you're going to build throughout this course. You can, of course, customize each step along the way as you kind of figure out what I'm doing with what image you want and what colors and fonts and etc., or even what you want to link to. So You can customize it all along the way, but this is going to be the template that we're working towards. All right, so with that, head over to our resources document and let's open up REPL.IT, which again is where we're going to be coding. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is just click Start. You don't even need to create an account. You can just click Start Coding up in the top right here. And again, we want to create an HTML file. So you type HTML, and so they have an online editor space, and click Create REPL, where we can edit an HTML file live. Okay, and also this program also includes a JavaScript and a CSS file, but we don't need those for the purpose of what we're going to be doing today. So the first thing you can do here is you can take up in the top left, and you can close this files so that you give yourself a little bit more space. And then let me just explain what we're looking at here. So on the left hand column here, this right here is this is an HTML file. So you can see here it's labeled index.html. Again, just for an analogy, you could think of this like it's a Word file. It'd be index.doc. That would be a Microsoft Word file. But what this is an HTML file. Okay. On the right hand side, what the REPL.IT is providing us with is a web browser built in here, as well as what's called the terminal on the bottom screen here. We're not going to need the terminal for the purposes of this video, so you can just go ahead and make that smaller to give ourselves some more space here. So what you have in front of you already is a finished website. It's just that there's nothing on it. So this right here, this HTML file, is being displayed in this web browser right here. But this obviously is not a very interesting website. But this is going to be the basis of what we're going to build your portfolio website from. So I just want to hop back over to the resources document and again just kind of explain what HTML is. So HTML is a language that web browsers use to that you use to create a website with, that web browsers read and make a website display from. So this is the foundation of every website. All right. Now just bear with me here. We're going to go back to what we look at in there, but you write HTML using tags to create HTML elements, and then these elements are arranged hierarchically and sometimes nested within each other in order to create the layout of the website. Okay, there is HTML tags for creating text, like these tags here on the screen, and there's also HTML tags for creating sections of web pages called divs. So divs will wrap sections. Again, we'll see this in a second. And then there's all kinds of other tags for other purposes, any purpose you can imagine, such as creating multimedia, creating links to other websites, lists, tables, and much more. Right here's a really great resource that you can hop to at any time to see all the different HTML tags that are possible to use. But just keep this for a reference, because I'll tell you exactly what tags you need to use for the website we're creating today. All right, so let's hop back over to our REPL. And here again, now let's dive in a little bit to what we're seeing here in our HTML file. So this general layout here is exactly how every HTML file will look at its root, okay? How it'll start with. So like I mentioned, HTML is written out in tags. So most HTML elements have an open and a close tag. So here you can see the outermost tags of this document are, and of all HTML sheets, are an HTML tag. So here's the open tag, and here's the close tag. You can see the close tag because it has the / at the beginning of it. And you can see everything is nested, everything else of our content is nested inside of these two tags. The next tags in the hierarchy of virtually every HTML sheet will be a head tag and a body tag. Okay, so these are the two main sections inside of an HTML document. The head tag, this holds metadata, which I'll discuss a little further later in the video. And then the body tag, this is what's going to hold our content, okay, the content of the web page. All right. So first thing let's do is let's start with a clean body tag. Like this right here is a piece of code that's not necessary for what we're going to be doing today, so you can just go ahead and delete it. Okay. Going back to the first thing we want to do is go back to our head tag, and we're going to give our website a name. So like I mentioned, the head section is where metadata is stored, and the title of the website is what appears in like search results for websites, as well as what appears on the tab screen of a website. So for example, let me open up, let's just go to google.com here. And so here you can see it says Google up on the tab screen. That's because inside of their title page on the HTML sheet that Google sent back to us when we went to google.com, it said Google right here. So then this would show, this is how they got Google to appear in their new tab screen, by having the title of the page be Google. So first off, go ahead and let's name our website. So I'm just going to call this my website, but you can call it anything you want. You can call it your name, you can call it, my portfolio, my website, whatever you prefer. Okay, so let's type that in there. And then the next thing below this title is another piece of code that we just don't need for this tutorial. So we're going to delete that. We're going to leave these two elements above the title just because they help web browsers interpret our web page. But if they were to be deleted, that would likely do little damage to our website as well. But we're just going to leave them. Okay. So now let's get to actually creating some content on our website page. As I mentioned, this is on the right-hand side. This is a live website right now being fed from our HTML document. It's just that there's no content in it because the body's empty. Okay. So let's start by creating some text. So there's two main ways to create text in HTML, and that's by using H tags or P tags. Okay, so H tags, and so again, how you create an HTML tag is it has an open and a close. So our open tag looks like this, and our close tag starts with a / and then also says the name of the tag. And then I'm going to write here H1. I'm going to write title 1. Okay, and then let's hit run. Okay. And there it is. So you saw we have this is our first piece of code that's showing up on our website, our first piece of content. Other ways to write text on a website are the H tags go all the way H1 through 6. So here I'm just going to paste a couple more in here quick just for you to see. So these are different sizes of heading text. Okay, you can see that as they get smaller, respectively, the text also gets smaller. And then the most basic way to write text is to use a P tag. Okay, so here I'll just write text in there actually. Okay, so P is the most basic form of using text. Okay, and then the other thing I mentioned in the document, the other main type of HTML elements you'll be using on your page is you'll be sectioning off content, putting them in their own respective sections using what are called div tags. Okay, so just like the body tag wraps everything from our content that's going to appear within the body, we can subsection items by putting them inside of divs. Okay, so here we just put, and I'm going to the main title inside of its own div, and then now we're going to put the text title inside of its own div here. Okay, and here I'm just going to format that a little better. So both of these are inside of their own div, and I hit run, and you see nothing changed there, and that's because at this point, even though we separated them in separate sections, we still haven't put anything in place to distinguish these sections, so they just rest on top of each other, just like the text did when it wasn't in a section. Okay, so with that, I want you to just understand this is right here is how you write HTML. You can create text, you can put text inside of sections, and build a web page out doing that. But let's shift directions and gear up pretty quickly and start building towards our website here. Okay, so again, right here is what the goal of what we're trying to create. So here's our diagram. Let's just start building towards this. Okay, so the first thing I notice on the page is I notice these two different text elements. One says your name, and one says your title. Okay, and you can make that title look however you want. Okay, so let's clear our body. Let's make it completely clear. Okay, and then what we're going to do now is let's make our name an H1, and let's make our title an H2. Okay, so here I'm going to write your name and then title, and I'll call it pharmacist for this video. I'm going to hit run. Okay, and there they are. And so kind of like our diagram, they're different sizes. Great. But now they're also different colors. So you may be wondering how you can change colors of HTML elements, because right now everything is just this boring default text. So how we do that is by using CSS which I'm going to hop back to my other programming language, my resources sheet, and explain below the HTML section here. I explain just some brief information about what CSS is. So CSS is another language. It's different than HTML, but you can write it within an HTML document, okay? And then, so CSS, like I was saying, is another language that you can write into an HTML document where you can change the style of, and colors and shapes and sizes of your content that appears on the screen, okay? So how we write CSS in a HTML document is we go up into the head, again, where our metadata is going to be, and what we need to do is we need to open and close another pair of tags called style. Okay, so here's the open and close tag for style, and let's open this up here. And now what we want to do is we want to specify what elements we want to change the colors of, or the sizes, or the styling of. So our name is an H1, so if we want to change H1s, we can just say H1, and then we open up a pair of brackets, and then we can change a whole variety of different types of properties, but I think the most obvious one we can change is color. So I'm going to write color and write colon, and then let's make our H1 tag, let's make it blue, okay? So I'm going to write the color in, and then I'm going to put a semicolon at the end of it. Now I'm going to hit run. And there you can see we changed the color of our name. And then down here, for the H2, which is our title, we can also change properties of that. Let's change the size of it. Let's say font size 16, okay? And we have to specify what 16 means. So for font sizes, you can do pixels or points, just like you would in a Word document, or there's other sizes that HTML recognizes as well. So let's just go ahead and do points like you would in a Word document. Okay, so I'm gonna hit run, and there it changed the size. Maybe we didn't notice that, so let's make it bigger. There, now you can see it. You can notice that we definitely changed it. Now, we may run into some trouble where, like I mentioned, we only have, for text elements, H1 through 6 and P tags. And if we were to create another H1, so I just copied and pasted that, and let's just say info here, you can see that it's also going to take on the same style that we denoted for the H1 inside of your name. And so quickly you could see some issues that might happen here is that if we only have H1 through H6 and P to use for text, well then we could only have 7 different styles of text writing on our page. And so there's actually further things that we can do to differentiate elements. And what we can do for that is we can give elements classes, okay? So like up here you see in these meta tags, within the tag itself, they have properties here. We can also give properties to the elements that we create in our body, and one type of property we can give them to distinguish them from each other is called a class. So here I'm going to type class and write equals sign, okay? So class equals, and then I have an open and close quotations, and I'm going to write in that quotations. And I can give this a class of whatever I want. So I'm going to say that this is the name text, okay? All right, and then let's say below that here, since this info is also in H1, and we want to distinguish these two, I could say class equals, open and close, I'm going to call this the info text, all right? Now, we've given ourselves the ability to differentiate between these two, but how do we use CSS to actually do that? And actually, it's very similar to what we did here. You can just type out the class. So I'm going to type out name text, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this H1 here because we're going to rename our H1s of classes. And here I'm going to say, I'm going to give this one a color of red, all right, semicolon to close it. And then for info text, let's also do that here. And then give it a color of pink, all right? And then let's press run. And, oh, it didn't work. They're actually back to default. And that's because for base elements like H1, H2, P, you can just type out the element name. But for classes, you need to put a period before the word of the name of the class in order to tell CSS that it's looking to target a class and not an element called this, which doesn't exist. So now I put periods before those, and now let's press run. And there you can see we just identified the classes of our two elements we wanted to change. And even though they're both H1s, we targeted this individual classes, and so that's how we're able to distinguish between elements on our page and give them their own respective styles. Okay, so now that I think we understand a little bit about how CSS works to target elements and to target elements that have class names, let's clear all this out and let's actually start over, because I want to use the same tag for both the name and the title, just so that just for some consistency's sake here, okay? And then we're going to use the class system in order to differentiate between our name and our title. So I'm going to start from scratch, and here I'm just going to hit run, so we empty our page. All right. And now, if you haven't noticed already, again, you can type out elements, open and close. But the nice thing about REPL is that if you just type the letter of an element that is real, you just press enter, it'll type it for you, and then you can just arrow back into the middle of it here. So I'm going to type your name, and then below that I'm going to type P in another one, and now I'm going to type title in again. So I'm just retyping my name and title, but we're going to use P tags for the text. And now let's go ahead and give these classes again. So here I started typing class and hit enter, and REPL quick did it for me, which is great. So I'm gonna call this name text, and then let's call this title text. Okay, and now the first thing I want to do with these is let's distinguish style sizes between these two. Okay, so here I'm going to say name text, and again, don't forget to use the period before your class inside of the style section. And we're going to give this a font size of let's do 16 point for the name, and then let's go title text, and let's give this a font size of 12 point. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so let's head back over to our diagram. Actually, let's make this a little bigger. I'm going to make it 14 point. There we go. Let's head back over to our diagram, and let's see what we need to do next. So it appears that in the center here, this card that holds the photo in our name and title appears to be its own section within the greater web page. So, and then also within this section, there appears to be a separate section for the photo and for the info about ourselves, our name and our title in this link here. So let's start creating some divs to section off our code here so that we can give it different styles and separate areas. So here I'm going to start by creating an outer div, and so I created the open and close pairs. I'm deleting this, and I'm going to paste it below so that we have this inside of, or wrapped around our information. And then, like I mentioned, also within our sheet here, or within our template, we have two separate sections for both. So I'm creating two more divs inside of the div here, and we're going to open this up here, and I'm going to put the name and title inside of its own div, and then we're going to leave this div empty for now. This is going to be where our picture is going to be. And then let's go ahead and give this outer div that's holding all of our information, let's give it its own class, because it needs to distinguish itself from the greater body outside of it. Let's call this the main box. This is going to be the main box that holds all the information. And then the div that's going to hold the picture, let's call this the picture box. All right. And then below that, again, let's call the section where we're holding our name and title and our link, let's call this our because it's our information. So let's call it our info box. All right. And now we have all those sections named nicely. So let's go ahead and run this. And even though it's not going to do anything, that's just fine. Now let's distinguish between the greater body and our main box. Let's do that next. So like we saw in the diagram back there, I'm going to go to the top here. The body has a different color than the main box. So let's go ahead and color the body right away. I'm going to give it a color of red. All right. And let's run that. well, excuse me, colors for coloring text. We want to color the body, which is a background. So we're going to give it a background color of red. All right, perfect. And now, below that, let's give our main box a different background color, which it was white in our diagram. So let's jump right to giving it a background color of white. All right. And look at that. Look at where you can start to see remnants of our website already, just a couple lines of HTML and CSS. Okay. Now, the next thing we want to do is the text of our name was centered within this main box. Okay. So let's give this a property of text align. We're going to tell the main box how it should align text, and how we want it to align text is in the center. So I'm saying text align center. Perfect. So now look at that. And then also within this box here, you can see that there's spacing between the top and the bottom of the content within our the info box, which is holding our name and title. So let's go down and let's open up a new style here for our info box, which is holding, again, our name and title text. And let's tell this to create some space between the top. Let me demonstrate what, let's see what the boundary of the info box is, okay? So color, let's make the color blue, background color blue for the info box. And there you can see that it takes up the entire width of its wrapper, the main box. So the info box is sitting on top of the main box within it. So it's coloring the background underneath that blue, or underneath the blue, yes, it was white. And since we're on top of that, it's now overriding the color of it with blue. But let's create some space around the name and title, which are pressed up against the top and bottom respectively, because the info box is only as tall as the content within it at this point. So I'm going to create another property called padding, which is how much padding is between the outside boundary of the info box and the content within it. And let's give it a padding of 16 pixels. And so this gives it 16 pixels on every side. So now there's 16 pixels worth of padding all around this box in here. And so yeah, if I were to take this text align and let's delete that, here you can see that there's still 16 pixels on the left-hand side of the info box, which is holding our text. And actually, I want to put that text align inside of our info box, because that's just a little closer to, it's directly the parent of the text that we have. So let's get the text line there, and there we go. Now the next thing you're going to notice about our diagram is that the info box doesn't actually take up the whole width of the page. So how do we make the info box be smaller in this instance? And how we do that is we're going to specify how wide we want the info box, or excuse me, the main box, which is holding the info box, how wide we want that to be on the background. So let's go ahead and give the main box a width. And we're going to give it a width of 400 pixels. All right. Let's run that. And there we go. Now we can see it's 400 pixels of width, which is great. But there's an issue that if our screen were to be viewed on a mobile phone, our website, 400 pixels would run off the screen of most mobile devices. Again, iPhone SE, for example, is about 320 pixels wide. So this would run off the edge of that. So what we actually want to do is we want to make the width. Let's make the width 90% of the page. Okay, so now the width is taking up 90% of the page, but then we're going to set a max width of 400 pixels. Okay, so by doing this, what we're saying, oh, I have to type 400 pixels. By doing this, what we're saying is that we want our main box to take up 90% of the screen, but don't exceed 400 pixels. So on a mobile phone screen, our main box is going to take up 90% of the width. And like I mentioned, that's going to be less than 400 pixels, but it's not going to, in this case now, run off the edge of the mobile phone screen. But on our website, on our computer, it's only going to go 400 pixels wide. So then it'll maintain that reasonable width on the page that we want it to. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and remove this info box background color now, because we want this to return to white like it is in our diagram. All right. So the next thing we want to do is we want to start making some better colors on this page. And the first thing we want to start with before the background even is our name and our title text there. Okay. So we've been coloring things with some pretty common everyday colors, but let's see what's all available. So hop back over to your resources section here, and then down underneath CSS, resources document, excuse me, I have some resources that you can link to help us with colors. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up this top link, and there is 342 color names that, like red, like blue, like green, that HTML pre-recognizes what actual color value, what hex or RGB value to replace the name that we gave it with, okay? So what you can do is you can type any of these names into the color section to get these respective colors. There's no space, however, though. So Grey Wolf would be just Grey Wolf, no space, but still want to use the capitals. Or you can also paste in directly in hex values or RGB values. So I want to make my title, let's make my title granite. So I'm going to grab that here. Actually, I'll make it gray cloud, but I'm going to grab the hex, and then I'm going to make my name dark slate gray. So again, you have multiple options for how you type colors out, but for one of them, so for name text, here I'm going to give it a color of dark slate gray. All right, and then for title text, I'm going to give it a color of, I already forgot the name of it, but it's this color right here. And there we go. You can see the colors. And that might be, yeah, it's okay, perfect. Now let's jump over. We want to make our background a lot fancier. So hop back to the resources, and we're actually going to use a gradient for the background, okay? So right here, you can scroll down to this gradients resource, and you can actually, with this document right here, you can create your own gradient, okay? So you can drag and drop the color line along the top there to build your own gradient, and you can change these different colors however you'd like to build your own gradient. And then right down here, the nice thing about this website is it pre-creates what CSS code we need to use for this background. So we don't need this top background with just the RGB value, but you can just grab this bottom background that includes the linear gradient in it, and you can go ahead and copy this, and then we're going to paste it back inside of our REPL, okay? And so I'm going to go grab a different gradient that I already pre-prepared on my second window here. So I'm just copying that right now, but you go ahead and copy in, pause the video, create the gradient you want to create, and you can obviously change it at any time. And then I'm going to go and here's the gradient I prepared. I'm going to paste this in, and then we're going to delete the background color because we're replacing it with this background. And there, look at that. So now you can see your gradient as the background to your web page. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to align our main box in the center of the page. Right now, it's by default, items are arranged from top to left. So things will start, things that are on top of each other will just build downwards, and things that are to the right of each other, or I guess inside of each other, will start on the left-hand side of their parents. Okay, so now what we want to do, just go ahead and copy the code I'm typing right now. Okay, don't worry about, I'm not going to explain much about this, but basically I'm telling the body we're telling the body that we want it to put the content inside of it in the very center of it. So type out a property of display flex, okay, and then we're going to say flex direction. Again, don't worry about what I'm, just type along with me. Flex direction row, and we're going to say align items center and justify content center. There's tons of different ways to build layouts and build the way that child elements interact with parent elements. And that's beyond the scope of this course, but just copy these 4 properties, and that's going to be how we tell the page to put we tell the body to hold its child elements. And there you can see that what it did was it moved it to the center, so it horizontally aligned it, but it did not vertically align it. And that's because right now the body, even though it is entirely colored with the background we gave it, it's only as tall as its child elements. So we need to make the body taller. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell the body that at minimum, so we're going to set a min height property. At minimum, the body must be at least as tall as 100% of the view height. So the window that it's being displayed on, the body cannot be any shorter than that window. So now I'm going to run this. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of internet issues right here. Just give me just a second. Okay, so min height 100, view height, let's run this, and there we go. So, I'm sorry, my internet connection got lost for a second there. So again, now we have everything is fully vertically and horizontally aligned by giving the parent container, in this instance it's the body, these 5 properties here that tell it that it needs to be at least as tall as the window, it needs to align its children in this way. And I need to fix my flex direction here to spell that correctly. Okay, perfect. So the next thing we need to do is we want to start styling our info box here. So as in our diagram, we're going to add a picture to the top of this. So head back over to your resources section, and here I have under the other resources this link to this website called Unsplash. So this is a website where tons of really generous photographers upload their photography for folks like ourselves who are designing websites or any project really you could imagine to use some free attribution-free photographs. But it's always great to give attribution if you can fit it in. For the scope of this project, I'm not going to do that, but it would be great if you did add somewhere attribution to your artist. So actually, here's what we'll do. So we'll come back to how we're going to do that in a second. But for my image, I just Googled landscape. You can find whatever image you'd like for your own portfolio website. And I'm going to pull this image up like I did here. I just clicked on it. And now what you want to do is we're going to right click on it, and you need to click copy image address. So not copy image, but copy image address. And now that's saved to my copy. And now I'm going to head back to my code editor here, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna edit the picture box. So here, let's go below main box, above info box. We're gonna edit picture box, and the first thing we're gonna do for our picture box is we need to make it have some height because there's nothing inside of it. So it currently is 0 pixels tall. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna specify how tall we want the picture box to be. And I'm gonna say 200 pixels. Okay, let's run that. And there you can see there's space here. There's 200 pixels between the top and the where the info box starts. And now the next thing we want to do is we want to add an image to the background. And that's going to be the image that we just copied the address of. So I'm going to type background image, all right? And then here, just code with me. I'm typing URL, open and close parentheses, open and close quotations. And then now I'm pasting in my image address. And let's hit run. And look at that, there's our image, kind of. Our image is there, but it's just so large that it's not fitting within this. Again, we specified this is a 200 by 400 width box that we're trying to get the image to squeeze into. So we need to further tell the background how to display the image. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to give it some more properties. We're going to tell the background we want background size, to be cover, and then we want background position to equal center. All right, and now let's run this. And look at that, there's our image. Wow, you can see we're getting really close to our final website. So let's just keep styling away at things. So the next thing we want to do is we want to add some border radius to our entire main box here. So border radius is a pretty popular web design trend right now of curving or rounding the edges of squared off sections. So let's just give it a border radius, let's say 8 pixels, okay? And you'll see what's going to happen here. There we go. So look, so you can see our corners here on the bottom are rounded off at an 8 pixel border radius. If we were to make this 80, it would get very large and kind of obnoxiously large. So we're going to go back to 8. But you may be wondering how come the image didn't have its edges, its corners turned, and that's because the background image is running off. Basically it's sitting on top of the curved corners. So underneath the image, the corners are are curved, but the image itself is not curved. It's essentially overflowing its container. So what we need to do is we need to tell the picture box itself to also have some border radius. So let's give the picture itself also a border radius of 8 pixels. Let's run that. Awesome, look, it curved our photos, excuse me, our corners. But the bottom corners are curved too, and you might like that. If you do, you can leave that. But I'm gonna, like our diagram, I'm gonna only have the top corners be curved. So when we write border radius, when we just say 8 pixels, we're telling it to do 8 pixels on every corner. But if we want to specify individual corners, we can write out values for each corner. So it starts from top left and goes clockwise. So the top left, we want the top left corner to be 8 pixels. Now let's make the top right corner 8 pixels. Let's make the bottom corner, bottom right 0, and let's make bottom left 0 pixels. And now let's run it. And now you can see it did that. So our top corners are curved, our bottom corners are not. All right, perfect. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to add another piece of style that's pretty popular these days called box shadow. So here you can see in our diagram there's a shadow around the center info box here that kind of gives it like a floating looking effect. And so that's a pretty popular design style right now. So we're going to add that to ours as well. So the property is called box shadow, and I pre-prepared a box shadow that you can just copy right in. I'm going to paste it in. We're going to do this on the main box, which holds all of our content. So you can type out the property box shadow, and then we're saying we want it to go, I can't remember, one of these is up. So we're saying we want the shadow to go down 4 pixels, and we want it to go to the right 4 pixels. We want it to have 10 pixels of blur and then 0 pixels of spread, and then we give it a color for the shadow. So this is another way that you can do colors. Like I mentioned, you can type RGBA or RGB values, I should say, or RGBA values, which means you can add an opacity to what you're doing. So if this was just like this here, this just denotes pure black, but we also want to give it some opacity so that it's a little lighter than just pure black. So if this was to be here, let's just run this. So you can see there it's completely black, which is 000, and then we can add some opacity to it. And so 1 is fully opaque, so it didn't change at all here. And then 0 is fully transparent, so we don't even see it. And so we're going to make this 0.2, so 20% opaque, basically. And there you go. Now we can see our box shadow in there. All right, well, this is coming along great. The next thing we want to do is let's add in our LinkedIn icon. Okay, so head back over to your resources, and the second thing after colors is this link to what's called Font Awesome. So Font Awesome is a service that you can use to pull in font icons, which are kind of like images, but they load way faster and perform really well on websites. So what you want to do, so you can read as much or little of this as you want. All you need to do is just copy this top link here, and then this is going to be what allows us to use these font icons, which we'll finish using. So let's take this back to our code, and then I just copied that in a long piece of code there, and then below the title, I'm going to paste it right here. It could be above the title, it doesn't matter, but above style is good practice. So we can paste that there, and then now let's go back to the Font Awesome page, and we want to go find the icon. So on the left-hand side here, and if you don't want to, you can just copy what I type out. But I'm looking right now for LinkedIn, and there it is. I'm going to use the square. So again, you can follow this or just copy once I get there. But I'm copying this top piece of code here. I'm coming back to my code editor, and now we pasted this here. I'm going to scroll back down, and I'm going to paste. This is a piece of content I'm going to paste below our title. Okay, so here you can type out this. It's an I tag, and then there's open and a close, but there's nothing between the open and close. And then the class that we specify here tells Font Awesome how to style it. So now I'm gonna hit run, and there you can see the icon. Now the icon right here is kind of small, and maybe we want to change the style of it. So class properties, you can hold multiple classes inside of the same class properties. You can already see inside of the same class section. So you can already see that this icon has multiple classes. It has the class of FA, and it has the class of FA-LinkedIn-Square. So we're going to put a space at the end of that, and we're going to add another class. So since this is going to be our link to our LinkedIn page, we're just going to give it another class name called link. And now I'm going to scroll up here, and we're going to give it some style. So I'm going to say .link, and let's make it bigger. So let's give it a font. So again, it's a font icon. So you can make it larger by doing font sizes, and let's give it a font size of, let's say, 24 pixels. Right? Let's see what that looks like. Let's go bigger. Let's say 30 pixels. Okay, nice. So there is our. I'm kind of a stickler. I want to make it a little smaller. 28 pixels. Perfect. So there you can see that it's 28 pixels, and it looks like it's perfectly black right now, which you can keep if you'd like. I'm going to change the color just a little bit. Let's make it gray. Great. Now you can see it's gray. Now, again, this is going to be a link, and so right now I'm hovering my mouse over it, and most of the time links, will hover, or they'll underline, or they'll do something to denote to the user that, hey, you want to click this. So we're going to add a little bit more style to this icon to make it perform a style action when it's hovered over. So below link, I'm going to open up another style denoter here, and we're going to type link again and open up link again. But after the word link, we're going to use the word colon, and we're going to type hover here. So this is telling CSS what to do to this element when it's hovered over. And now what we're going to do when it's hovered over is we're going to change the opacity. And we're going to, again, we already discussed that, so we're going to make it 0.7. So we're going to make it 70% opaque when it's hovered over. And I just hit run. Don't forget to hit run after you type your code, otherwise you're not going to see any actions, okay? Now you can see when I hover over it, it changes colors. And so that's just a little bit, I think, nicer user experience. Great. So the next thing we're going to do is, I think, I guess the last thing we're going to do for styling's sake is we're going to change the fonts of our name and title, because you may think that this is kind of a boring out-of-the-box font. So head back to your resources and go down to fonts, and Google provides a really great font service for websites called Google Fonts. Now there's all kinds of fonts here that you could search and find whatever you'd like. I'm just going to pick Open Sans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this. And here it's taking me to a whole bunch of different font weights for Open Sans. And I'm just going to head right down to where it says regular here. I'm going to click Select Style. And then just like Font Awesome, the first thing we need to do is I'm going to click Embed here on this right pane that opened up. And it gave me something, a piece of code to paste in my website's metadata to use the Google Fonts service. So I copied this, and we're going to head back to our code here, and then here just below the Font Awesome, and then above the style, I'm going to paste this Google Fonts piece of code in. And now let's go back to Google Fonts, and Google also again gives us the CSS we need to use in order to access this font. So here I'm copying this font family property. So what font family do we want our text to belong to? And now I'm going to head down to where it says name text, and I'm going to give name text font family, and I'm going to give title text this font family, and let's hit run. And there you can see it styled the name and title with this font. Now it can be kind of cumbersome to give every piece of text the font family you want to use. Say we had a bunch of different text elements on this page. So one thing you can actually do is a shortcut. So we're going to delete these out, but then copy it here. So copy this font family property. And I'm going to go to the top of my style, so above the body even, and I'm going to say asterisk open, and then this means apply styles globally to whatever it can. So here now I'm going to paste this in. So this is going to apply it to all text elements on this page, no matter what their no matter what class they have. If we were to denote a different font family down here in our name text, it would override this denotion where we gave it up here. But this is just an easy way so that any future text we add to the page too, it's also going to have this font. Okay. Okay, perfect. So we'll look at that. We have pretty much our fully working website. It's just that our link doesn't work yet. So that's the last thing we're going to add here. So I'm going to add, we're going to use another type of HTML tag. So again, we've been using P's and H's and divs. So I'm going to show you one more type of HTML tag for linking that we're going to use. I'm just going to go right back to our code editor and type it. And it's called an A tag or an anchor tag. Okay. So what we want to link is we want the LinkedIn icon to be the element that's pressed in order to link out. So above that, real quick, we're going to start by typing our A tag. So here, I'm just going to type it out from scratch. So A, we're going to make A open, we're going to make A close. Well, actually, we're going to wrap this icon. So we're going to make A close here. Then we're going to move it here. And then now, inside of the opening A tag, make us create a space. And just like we were typing classes before, we're going to type a special property for A tags that give it a URL for a website to go to. So how you do that is you type href equals, and then here you paste whatever link you want. So here's where you can go to your LinkedIn profile and copy the URL to it. And I'm just going to paste in our company's LinkedIn URL. So there's that. And then now we're going to hit run. And I'm going to open this up in a new window to show you what happens here. So if I click, and this is just zoomed out right now, so that's why it looks so small. It's going to look a lot bigger on your screen. But when I click this link, you can see it takes me right to LinkedIn. I'm not logged in, but it went from our page directly to LinkedIn. But another common thing you may want to do is you may want to have the users keep your website open, or the users may be browsing your website, so they don't actually want to leave your website, but they also want to check out your link. So a popular thing to do is to make this link open in a new tab. So how we do that is we're going to give it another property. So again, we already gave it an href property, but let's give it another property. We're going to call this property target, and equal sign, open, close, and then type with me here, target underscore blank. Okay. Here, I'm just going to get this line. Oh, that's fine. Target underscore blank. Just make sure there's a space between the end of the quote here and your href, the start of that. It's totally fine that this is all spilling on this multiple lines. It's all within the same open close tag, so it's going to be read like that. Okay. Now I'm going to hit run. And now I'm going to open this up in a new window again. I'm sorry, it's zoomed out. Okay. So now I'm going to press my link. And there you see my website stayed open, and then LinkedIn opened up in a new window. So that's the behavior that I'm going to go with for this. Okay. Perfect. Well, here you go. At this point, we've completed our website. So the next and last thing we want to do is get it online. So again, I hope you got a hang of all of how, or I guess just some of how this is working. And you can, try tinkering around, try adjusting colors, adjusting sizes of things, and you can always come back to the original code you wrote for the sake of this website. Okay. So let's go ahead and move forward and get this HTML sheet. So again, this is an HTML sheet you wrote. Let's get this HTML sheet online. So leave your REPL page open and head over to your resources document. And now we're going to open up the website that we're going to use to host our HTML sheet. Okay, so we're going to be using github.com. Okay, so for this section, you do need to create a GitHub account, and you just need an email and a password for that. And then it's going to have you, select some boxes about who you are. You can just click through all that stuff. Just get to. It's a totally free account. It's totally free to host the page, the HTML sheet, which is why we're using this service. And so just create your account, and then once you get to the point you're at, where I am here, all we need to do is we need to create a new repository. So you can either click, and so it's like a new code repository, or a new repository where we're going to hold your documents. So that's just it's as simple as that. You can click create new repository here on the left. You can go up to the right, click plus sign, click new repository, and now we're going to give it a name. And so you can give it a name, whatever name you want. Again, I'm going to call it my website. And then again, if you want to end up changing this later, you might be able to change it in the settings. Otherwise, you can just delete this repository and create a new one and then and then we'll just follow the same steps if you want to give it like a different repository name. Okay, so we're gonna make this public, and then you can skip all of, we don't need to check any of these boxes, and I'm gonna hit create repo. All right, there we go. Now there's a whole bunch of very confusing stuff here probably. Here's the good news, you can ignore all that. We just need to press create a new file, okay? And now what we want to do is we want to create an HTML file. Okay, so I'm going to type index.html, which is sort of like a standard way of naming your root HTML sheet for your website. And now it wants us to create an HTML file. So all we're going to do is we're just going to go back over to REPL, and you can copy this whole sheet. So Command Control A, or just select it all. And now I'm going to hit copy. Okay, and now I'm going to go back to GitHub, and I'm just going to paste this in here. Okay, paste it in there, and there's our whole website that we just created. And now I'm going to hit commit. Great, now it's committed. And now we're going to go to settings, and then scroll down inside of settings, and we're going to be using this service called GitHub Pages. Okay, so this is what's going to allow us to host our web page using the HTML sheet that we just saved to our repository. So inside of source here, just open this drop down and then click master. So that's the main branch of the code in our repository. We only have one file, so that's where it's located. And then just press save. Okay, and now it's saved. Here it says save successful, right? Now you can scroll back down to pages, and then here is the URL where your website's going to be hosted at. So sometimes it takes a few seconds to propagate, but we can just go ahead and click this, and we'll see if ours is done yet. Okay, it's not ready yet for us. So I just hit refresh once, and there you go. So now you can see our website is live on the internet at this website. It's at pharmacist.dev or /dev.github.io/mywebsite, which is really cool. And then here I'm just going to press back, and now back in that settings section of GitHub Pages, you can read here about if you want to add a custom domain. So like if you want to make this not the domain they just gave us, but you want to make it yourname.com or whatever whatever custom website name .com, .org, whatever you want to give it. Here's where you can learn how to do that. So let me know in the comments or shoot me an email if you want to learn how to do this custom domain piece, or if you think I should make a video about it. Otherwise, you can, if you want to just self-help, you can click learn more here, and you might be able to navigate your way through creating a custom domain. Or you could probably just Google like how to do GitHub Pages custom domain, and there's probably another YouTube video already out there showing you how to do that. So well, I'm going to leave it here, and I hope you enjoyed coding your first website and getting it on the internet. This was a really fast, push through all of what we did with little explanation. So at this point, if you want to go back and learn more, I have a section here on the resources pages where I link you, or I guess I'm just kind of directing you where I think you should go to learn more. So inside of on pharmacist.dev, there's already a post I wrote where I explain a little bit more about opportunities as a clinician learning programming and how to think about getting started. So underneath the web development section here, there's some really great free resources, and also in the description of this YouTube video, I linked to these as well. Some free resources where you can learn more about HTML, CSS, and go further with web development. And then if you wanted to like really commit to learning and guarantee that you learn a lot, probably the best place that I recommend doing that as a paid resource is Zero to Mastery Academy. So I'm an affiliate of this program because, as I kind of mentioned here, this instructor, I have lots of his courses, and thousands of lines of code from Zero to Mastery Academy courses are in my own live production websites for Cosmos Health, for Pearls.com. So I just can't recommend them enough. I think it's like $30 a month to get started, and you can. So I found that paying for programs helped me sort of like commit. Kind of like anything. If you like a gym membership, if you pay for it, then you're like, oh, I got to go. So again, there's endless free resources. So by all means, figure out if you're interested in doing more web development. But if you really are, this is a definitely a program I recommend. And here's a promo code if you're interested in using theirs. So. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and were able to create a portfolio website that you can now share for your next job, for your next, if you're a student, for residency, for your internship, or just for fun. Share it with your friends and family. And I'd love if you were to, in the comments, share a link out to the website you created, or shoot me an email with it. I'd love to see what you created and hear about your experience with this. So with that, thanks, and have a great rest of your day.